What is up? Welcome back. 2024-25 NBA season previews. My name is Matt Hanifan. This is Jiarmani DePena. Today we're going to be doing Jiarmani's Boston Celtics. Everyone's boo. No, I'm just kidding. Really quickly. So Jiarmani, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh my god! Like, I don't even know where to begin because this is a brand new feeling for me, especially now. Like in my time in Vendetta, like talk about going from some of like the lowest lows in 2022 and 2023 to the highest of highs as a NBA fan. But let's just say I had a very eventful start to my summer this year with the NBA playoffs. But yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm excited to talk about the Celtics, and I'm excited to see how this team goes with their first chance at a title defense in well over a decade. So I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm happy, and I'm excited.
The Boston Celtics last year, 64-18. Um, they were overwhelmingly the league's best team in terms of net rating. They were the best offense. I mean, it feels like each year there's a team that tops the other in terms of historically a good offense or how the best offense ever in terms of offensive rating. The Celtics were definitely that. This last year, they were one of the league's best defenses. Where's your? I mean, coming off the title run, they win 16-3 in the playoffs. They beat the Heat in 5 games. They beat the who am I missing? Cavs in 5 games, and then they beat the Pacers. They swept the Pacers before beating the Mavericks in 5 games. Where's, I guess, your head at? I mean, obviously, I could probably guess where your head was at last season with how awesome that was. But I guess, like, where's your head transition from then to now? Just from
I would.
like with all the parity, and I'm not parity, but like movement and stuff. Like free agency's now done. Obviously, the draft. The season starts next week, and so I guess like where's your head kind of shifted to as we approach this brand new season where everyone starts 0-0.
I would say that obviously coming off of the championship, like I'm just talking about the postseason run. Like me and my brother were sitting here, like literally, I was in this chair. My brother, like my bed's right next to me. My brother's sitting right next to me. And we're watching a majority, maybe like 95% of the Celtics games together. And like he's more of a Celtics fan by default, but like because like he kind of likes rooting for Sacramento, but obviously he says like Celtics, he's a Celtics fan by proxy because I'm here. But yeah, like we watched I like at least for myself, I watched that entire postseason run, and just something about this team just felt different throughout the entire season last year. Like obviously last year they brought in Drew Holiday. Somehow they brought in Porzingis off the smart trade. And then like looking back at the holiday trade in particular, it's like that was the game changer. Like yeah, bringing in Porzingis and swapping him out for Robert Williams, it's like that's like obviously there's still like he was still compromised by injuries, and obviously he's going to start the season on the injured list. But for what Porzingis provided, he provided shooting, he provided shot blocking. So he was still that presence, and he was like I would say arguably he probably had like the best season of his career. That like and like you can say like oh Washington was great for him, but like being able to contribute at a high level for one of the best teams in the NBA and obviously ultimately the best team in the NBA last season, going into this season now, they locked down Derek White. They locked down Drew Holiday. They obviously signed Porzingis to like a little extension when they first got him. Jaylen Brown is already on his supermax deal. Jason Tatum, I believe if he hasn't signed it already, he has a supermax. It's like now,
He signed it.
okay, so
He signed it.
pretty much like you have two guys making supermax money, and those are your two best players. You're locked into this core for the next 4 or 5 years, and then you have even other guys they managed to bring back. They brought back Sam Hauser, who could have left and got more money elsewhere, to be honest, but he decided to stick around. Like Peyton Pritchard's still there. Al Horford said he's coming back for another season, which I do think this is his final year, whether like they win the chip or not again. But he finally got a ring. But they have other guys like Xavier Tillman. They traded for Jaden Springer, like just out of nowhere, like from the Sixers, and like even though Trey hates this guy for some reason, Jordan Walsh is still like he's still a thing, and he's somebody who can turn into an NBA player. But No, but yeah, going into this season, like the scary part is the fact that there's so much, like this team is locked down now. So it's like you have, like, if things were to happen, heaven forbid, it's like you're kind of stuck with this. So it's kind of like obviously we're in a far better position than teams like Phoenix that like they have great names, but now you're stuck with like a Bradley Beal contract. Like you can't look at anybody here and be like, oh no, they have that contract. Like maybe you can say that for Drew in a couple years, but again, like the good thing about having somebody like Drew Holiday, even though he's in his mid 30s now, he doesn't have to be that guy he was in Milwaukee or in New Orleans or anything like that. So, like, you see guys take a step up, but like, for me, I always felt like this team was always going to be due for a championship because, like, these guys were always getting so close. They were always the bridesmaids and never the bride. They were always the team that lost in the conference finals and they made it to the NBA finals, but then getting outplayed and allow Steph to kind of just cement his legacy and win his Finals MVP a couple of years ago. But then now they made the big swing trades and training some like mainstay players like Marcus Smart, which was hard to grasp at first. Um, but going into the season now, I don't see a team, no matter how much like turnover of rosters and whatnot and like trades happening, I don't see a team right now beating the Celtics team 4 times in the playoffs. And I could easily say, like, obviously, like, it can be like the homer in me. I can see them going back to back. But until I see that actually happen, like, I can't say that it will. Like, I strongly believe that this Celtics team could go back to back. And I know a lot of people, and even the NBA included, like seeing different teams winning the championship every year. But like, believe, like, I'm looking and it's like, it's kind of, at least right now, on paper, I don't see anybody else who can stack up against this team. You have people saying that the Celtics bench is a 6 seed in the East, which I think is a disrespectful to say, like, and just like discounting like all the other teams in like in the Eastern Conference anyway. But it's like the Celtics team is deep. They have star power. They can shoot. They're one of, if not the best 3-point shooting team last year. I know they took the most, if I remember correctly. Like in the preseason already, when they were facing Denver, they took like 43s. Like these guys were living and dying by the three ball, and then like Joe Mazzulla really coming into his own as the head coach, and like the the lovable maniac that he is. Like it seems like every quote he drops is just like some hard shit. Like, it's like he's not afraid. And like this Celtics team is like his Celtics team is set up for success. But and I know I've been going on like a long little tangent, but like it's just I'm very passionate. I just don't think that this Celtics team is like it's only the beginning. I don't think it's just going to be a one and done thing. Especially because I didn't even get into the details about like Tatum and Brown, and like I know we'll jump into those guys in a little while, but like the biggest concern I have for this team is pretty much like how's this team going to look in a couple years down the line with all these committed contracts and like the fact that the team is like up in the air in terms of being up for sale and all that stuff comes into factor in. But on a base level, from a basketball standpoint, I feel like the Celtics are primed for a back-to-back titles.
I think I'm with you there. I said this about Denver last year. I thought they were one of the more repeatable champions that I've seen in recent memory outside of those, those Warriors teams and whatnot. Obviously, their outcome, I mean, they lost Bruce Brown in the offseason. I still thought they were probably one of the best teams in the league at the time, obviously. And they, suffered an incomprehensible Game 7 loss to Minnesota in the Western Conference semis. They weren't able to, get back to the finals. I think the same can be said about Boston this year, even though I don't think they got worse. Like they didn't lose anyone. Like they returned their top 10, top 11 scorers from last year. A couple guys that you didn't mention was like Xavier Tillman, who they traded for at the deadline, and they traded, peanuts for him. And again, like Xavier Tillman didn't have a huge impact, but especially in the minutes that Porzingis doesn't play, or in the games that Porzingis doesn't play, in the minutes that he's not on the floor, to kind of take pressure off of Al, he's a very good small ball five. Especially, defensively. Like I said this in one of my many group chats that I'm in, with just some draft guys that I know. Like I was preemptively mad days before draft night about them drafting Baylor Shireman. And guess who they got? They got Baylor Shireman. And I know Baylor he struggled throughout the preseason. He struggled with the shooting in summer. Like I think he's going to be a guy that they're going to, work in Maine for a little bit, and try to, they're going to just develop that part of his game and, get him acclimated. I don't know if he's going to get much run, Brad even came out before the draft and said that it's going to be hard for whoever gets picked to crack the rotation day one, just because of how loaded it is. With guys like Pritchard, Hauser, I mean, Horford was starting, but like you get what I'm saying, like how loaded that rotation was with Tillman, with some of those guys that are, that 7-8 deep that Missoula will run. And he's got insurance behind them, like with Kada, who I've been a long fan. I've watched him since he was at Utah State. I've long been a fan of Neemias Kada. I don't know what the fuck Sacramento was doing, just cutting that guy and putting I don't know what they were thinking. More of like a long-term project though. But like, you get my point. Like, this team is, very deep, even if some may scoff at the depth that they have. And it's just like, when you are surrounded by Drew Holiday, when you're surrounded by Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, how good do you actually need to be, like, to not for that not to still be a very functional lineup? Because I know, like, a lot of people gave him shit last year, being like, oh, they don't have a star player, or not star player, but they don't have, like, Jaylen obviously won Finals MVP. People have their discourse about Tatum, but like, they don't have like a superstar-esque player. It's just like, I don't know if you need one. Like, I don't know if you need, like, for them, I don't know if you needed a top. I mean, I think Jason Tatum probably is like a fringe top 5 guy. You may have different thoughts about that, but like, I don't know if they needed one to be this, because I mean, you saw what they did last year.
Yeah.
They won 64 games. Just believe it or not, based on their point differential, their expected win-loss, their expected win-loss was 69-13. They lost 5 more games than they were expected to play or expected to win last year, just based on the numbers and based on the point differential and all that. Like, that's how dominant this team was. I don't know if you need an incredibly deep roster when you're that loaded up top, is when you have guys who are that malleable and that guys who can play together like that. You may have your thoughts, but just to kind of bounce off that.
Yeah, I would say this to discuss Brown and Tatum for a second. It's like, and the idea that like, people have discourse about Jason Tatum. Like, people, it seems to me, and I would always have these talks with my brother when we were watching these games and like hearing what people were saying on the social media. It's like, Jason Tatum, for whatever reason, gets flack from NBA fans because he's not like the fun choice, or he's like he comes across very corny. And like, I would say,
he does.
When he won the championship, I'm not advocating for his celebration when he won the championship, and he was trying to like replicate like every like championship meme you could think of.
I mean, if we're being honest, every player would do that.
Yeah, like,
so he is corny, but every player would do that. Like, come on.
Like, my thing
you just want to title. Come on, let's be real.
Yeah. So like, and the thing is, it's like, that's like, if that's what like his problem is, then like that's fine, because he's a champion, while like, like, your favorite player is still trying to struggle to get by, like the Celtics and whatnot. Like, if they're in the East, like, because like, I feel like a lot of people, like a lot of the Northeast fan bases, have a problem with Boston and all that, but that's neither here or there. But what I'm talking about with Jason Tatum is that he is, I believe it was 3 straight years that he's been first team All NBA. Yeah, ever since the 2022 season, he was first team All NBA. So the way I look at first team All NBA, especially now that it's positionless now, he is a top 5 player, like, recognized by like the NBA and media and whatnot. He's a top 5 player in basketball. Even if you put him at number 5, I can be completely fine with it. You can like in terms of other guys like Jokic, Giannis, like other guys like that, I completely understand. But then when we're talking about other players around the league, like, Jason Tatum is better than 99% of the league. Because like, especially if like you have those stats to back it up, like, yeah, his postseason run wasn't like, oh, like, he wasn't like doing what like Anthony Edwards stuff, and he's not like the flashiest player. He's not the fun pick. Like, people love Anthony Edwards because he's more entertaining. Like, he's a more like larger than life character. And I love Anthony Edwards. I'm not trying to throw any shade on him. Like, he is great for the NBA, and he's a fantastic player. But people look at that. People look at Luka, and people look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, being like, oh, like, these guys are better. And I even did a post talking about Jaylen Brown and how, like, if Jaylen Brown was in those situations, like the Celtics' second best player, he'd be putting up the same stats. Imagine if Jason Tatum was by himself somewhere, he would be putting up stats like that. So like, even then, even on a absolutely stacked team. You have Jason Tatum, even though like his numbers kind of came down a little bit, like he was still averaging 27, 8, and 5 with around a steal a game. It's like, and the dude's 6'10, he can shoot the three. He got more aggressive getting inside, especially during the postseason when that jumper wasn't working. And he retooled that, it looked like. Um, it's like Jason Tatum is a great, and I have no problem saying Jason Tatum is a superstar. There's no question to me about it. Absolute superstar. There's people saying that like, oh, like the MVP season's loading. I don't care if he wins the MVP or not. The Finals MVP is what I'm more concerned about. Like that means you won the chip. That like, and even then, I said this to you back in 22, or I actually think it was 22 when they were in the finals. Jaylen Brown will win Finals MVP before Jason Tatum does. And talking about Jaylen, it's like Jaylen. It seemed like he was the person who felt like he had more to prove, because I feel like he took it upon himself why he lost, like the Celtics lost to Miami, because like the whole thing with the left hand and all that stuff, and like that whole debacle, and he became a laughing stock for an offseason. And then that postseason run last year shut up everybody. Like you don't hear flack about Jaylen Brown. You only hear flack about Jason Tatum, because Jaylen Brown cemented like, you guys, like I'm the best two guard in the NBA. And like, and the thing is, it's like people will never acknowledge him as that because he's playing in Boston and he has so many tool pieces around him. Like I look at when Kevin Durant won the Finals MVPs with the Golden State. You had Steph, you had Clay, you had Draymond, and all those guys. Yeah, he has a great roster around him, but who was the best player in those series? So it's that kind of thing. It's like who is going to be that head and shoulders guy? But I feel like to your point, they have all these, like all the supporting cast around them. It allows them to open up their game up. But the thing is, it's like, wouldn't every team love to have what Boston has in terms of just like talent level?
100% yes.
So my thing is, it's like Brad Stevens literally just like he was a great head coach. He became like one of the best executives in the NBA in like recent NBA history. Like, is like, how? That I still ask myself this question, like, how did he manage to make this team into an absolute juggernaut? So like, I just think that Boston has their superstar duo. You got your two best players are getting paid like it. So like, whether like however far this team goes, it's going to be on the shoulders of those two. And like they can coast through. I'm not even saying they can coast, but they can go through the season. They'll win 55 to 60 games again, easy. I'm just saying now, it's like, how does the rest of the team kind of like sort itself out? Because now you're good. You're out Porzingis. I mentioned that earlier. You're going to be out Porzingis. How does this team look without Porzingis? Because there was times, I'm not gonna lie, there were times in the playoffs where it's like, damn, we really could use somebody like Porzingis right now. And I really hope it doesn't turn into that, where there's so much at stake for Porzingis to be healthy, for guys like Tatum and Brown to have to like be able to feel like they can be the most effective. It's their job to kind of really like, lead the team onward. If they want that back-to-back championships, like they know what it's like to win championships now. So they have that experience, they have that formula. So I feel like it's only going to get, I'm not going to say it's going to get easier, but it's going to seem like you've been here before. You're not going to be kind of like shying away from the moment.
Right. And like, they missed Kristaps Porzingis for over half the postseason, and yet they still went 16-3.
Like,
you may not actually. I mean, like, let him rest until Christmas. Let him get right until. I mean, again, you have guys like, obviously Al is combined you and I's age, and he's probably older than. I'm kidding when I say that.
Yeah.
But, he's not the youngest.
Yeah.
Duck on the pond, but he can still contribute for 20, 25 minutes a night. Xavier Tillman, like I mentioned earlier, still can contribute. Luke Cornett and Neemias Queta can still contribute for spot minutes. Like, you have guys who can still contribute. Obviously, they're not Kristaps Porzingis, but again, when you're surrounded by these guys, should they stay healthy, then you still have the best team in the NBA.
Yeah,
like barring none, one of the best teams in the NBA. Like, it's just, they went 16-3, and Porzingis got hurt, I think, game 4 against Miami.
Yep.
Didn't come back until the finals, and yet they still win 9-1 over that stretch.
people wanted to give the Celtics a lot of shit because they were going up against injured teams or guys who got injured at like obviously the wrong times, but you can't control that. And that
You
shouldn't.
also can't. They also kicked the shit out of them. I mean, maybe not Indiana for all those games, but like they beat the
Yeah.
dog poop out of Miami. They beat the dog poop out of Cleveland for most of those games. They had, I think it was game 1 or game 2 against Indiana. They beat the poop out. Like, I've said this to you before on different like it's just as much a health game as it is a who's best game.
Yeah.
Boston happened to be the healthiest. They also happened to be the best.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have mattered. I wish
like,
that wasn't the case because
yeah. You wish
I
you
don't
would
like
turn
Boston,
injuries
but
off and just
right.
let them go at it. But that's just not what it is. So like the thing is, it's like you put them in a bind. I feel like it was a media driven thing too. It's like if the Celtics lose, not even series, but they lose more games. Like I remember I was telling you this when I was talking about the Celtics on a recent postseason run, maybe a couple of years ago or the year before. But it's like the problem with the Celtics team, they would allow series to kind of carry on for like a game or maybe 2 games too long. And then we'll come back to bite them when they probably wish they can use like some of those extra days of rest and whatnot, especially especially in the pretty much in the trenches of the postseason. But to your point now, with talking about like all the big men depth that they have now with Kata and Cornette and Horford who's still kicking, even though I wouldn't trust Al Horford to be logging starter minutes anymore. Like I feel like he should be reserved for when you actually absolutely need him. He can still contribute. He's still in great shape and all that. But like obviously he's not 30 years old when the Celtics first got him. Like you got to be careful with him. But the thing is now, like if Porzingis is down, you have Al. Like I feel like you have big men that can do everything that Porzingis can do himself. So like you have Cornette who can, he can shot block, he can play good defense and pick and roll, and then you have Al Horford who can shoot and he can still be he can still be a good defender in at times, but you have like different parts of Porzingis's game that are like what other big men on this roster can do. Until obviously you get Porzingis back and it makes life a little bit easier for everybody. But and even the rookie you were talking about Baylor, like you
I'm
look at
still
guys
mad.
like
I'm still mad they got him.
yeah. You talk
He
about
was a player I liked a lot out of college. I was like, God damn, he's going to Boston. Like, again, it was just a sixth sense, and he ultimately goes to Boston. I'm sitting here. None of the other 29 teams or however many teams were in the first round could have just been like, no, we're going to get him.
they even got Lonnie Walker. We haven't even mentioned him yet, but
don't even fucking get me started on that.
But sticking with Baylor for right now, like he's 6'6" shooting guard, like he has skills, but the thing is, it's like we were talking about Pritchard, we were talking about Hauser, we were talking about Cornette and some of these other guys, like even somebody like JD Davidson, another guard on this team. It's like and Jaden Springer, all these young guys, but like Hauser and Pritchard, for example, those guys really paid their dues going up, like playing in Maine with the Maine Celtics and the G League affiliate and like working their way up. It took these guys like a couple years to actually like get to the rotation and actually get. But now you look at Pritchard and Hauser, like those guys are mainstays off the bench. And like it took time for that. Like even like someone like Jordan Walsh, he barely got any minutes this year, and like I don't even think he played at all in the finals or anything like that. Like he literally was just there on the bench, but he was playing majority of his games in Maine. So it's like it for the Celtics, it's about building. So like it's like pretty much like they have the team that they want right now, but it's also like they're real good about evaluating talent and developing that talent over the course of multiple seasons. Like Rob was like that when they had Daniel Tice's bum ass playing center on an Eastern Conference Finals team against Miami in the bubble. Like Rob Will was coming off the bench. He was playing in Maine. Like they've been so good about being patient with these guys. So I think Baylor's going to do just fine. And like you see how Peyton and Hauser have turned out already. Like I feel like the way the Celtics go about developing players, he's going to do just fine. Even if he's not going to have his moments now, he's gonna eventually be a mainstay in this rotation if they can develop him the right way.
I think over time, yeah. I mean, Baylor, good 3-point shooter in college, phenomenal rebounder. He was, when he was at South Dakota State, he was atop this conference or toward the top of the conference rebounding percentage. He was one of the best rebounders in the Big East when he was at Creighton. He's an okay defender, not great foot speed, but like he's smart, he's savvy, he can do all the little things and stuff like that. And so I'm not worried about him in Boston developing over time. Again, his form is a little bit strange to some extent, which I think there's a reason for some inconsistency there, but I'm not worried about him. Walsh was, again, he was raw as hell coming out of Arkansas, didn't get many minutes when he was there. Again, I think over time he could potentially become a rotation player, if not with Boston, somewhere. But I'm glad they're at least getting him reps at man, which all our organizations would likely do, and they should do if they're not. I was gonna ask you like your prediction on this team, but I know you already gave that before about not beating them. I think, or a team not beating them. I think I'm with you. A part of me that is not worried, but like this team had, outside of Porzingis last year, they had very good injury luck. You just can't, with how much basketball they've played over the last several months. It's hard to project. Not saying they won't stay healthy, but like, and I think they have enough to supplement if someone gets hurt for however long. But I think they're obviously the clear favorite to win the title. I think I would love to see them against OKC. I would even love to see them against Jokic in Denver, and how that would, you have the best basketball player in the world versus the best basketball team, and just see who would win that chess match over time. Any final thoughts, any parting thoughts about last off season, this off season,
I would
in this upcoming season?
I would say like I'm very excited for the season to kick off and see where like the Celtics go, and they have a really big test to see how this team's got, or not mainly them, pretty much on like the ring ceremony facing New York. Like the new like offensive juggernaut Knicks with Jalen Brunson and bringing in Cat and all the names they have in their starting lineup now. But like you saw how this team was over the course of the season. They were blowing out teams at halftime by like 40, 50 points.
They led by 20 points in half their games, or roughly half their games at some point during that's crazy.
Like people probably won't acknowledge this team like it right now, but that like last year's Boston Celtics was probably one of the best basketball teams historically that I've seen in a long time. Like
they were
historically, like people are going to remember this team as one of the best NBA teams like assembled. And it's like, and I know a lot of people wouldn't want to say like, oh, they're not Golden State. They weren't what Golden State was, and this and the other. You can't, like, we can say that now, but like they can be, because like they have like that core didn't stay together as long as the Celtics core can possibly stay together. So
I mean, again, their two best players have been there for 7-8 years now.
Since the beginning, yeah. It's like I think Jaylen Brown's already like is going to be not year 10. He's going into I think like year, yeah, I think it was like, hold on. Yeah, it's like year 8, so it's getting close. But the thing is, like, so I would say this thing about like if it was Denver versus Boston, which like I know we can always try to predict the finals like very early on, but then a lot of things can happen, and then like we wouldn't anticipate this. Like even though Jason Tatum said he sees Dallas seeing the Celtics in the finals if they make it back, but the thing about like I feel like the one thing I'd be worried about is how this team would go about playing against a dominant big. Like how are they going to play Giannis high? Like I saw how they played up against Jokic when they played last year, and Jokic was like at times eating Porzingis alive on whether it was in the post or kind of taking him out into the perimeter and stuff like that. But I'm curious to see how this team really like goes about like the title defense. I hope like they feel like they don't feel like, I hope that like those feelings at times where they just feel like they're just being like sped up, or it feels like they're just chucking up shots just for the sake of it, or just making boneheaded plays and making boneheaded like stuff like that in the regular season's fine. But I kind of hope that point in time for Celtics basketball is behind them when it comes to like them dropping games. Like obviously they only lost 3 times in the postseason, so hopefully that's a good like omen and a good sign for the rest of this core's run together. But I'm very excited to see how this team's put together. Every team around the NBA that has made moves has been to try to combat the Celtics, especially like teams in the East, like the Knicks and the Sixers and like some of those teams that you can think of. Like now, like the Celtics went from trying to, reach the mountaintop to actually making it there. Now they have the target on their back. So how are they going to respond with people saying like the whole thing with Jaylen Brown with the Olympic team? Jason Tatum, people like calling him out and being like, "Oh, the Celtics are like frauds and this, that, and the other." There's so many narratives for the Celtics team going into the season that they just have to go back and do it again, just to start and like just shut people up even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's championship or bust for this team. Going forward.
After you win it, I mean, it kind of has to be, no?
Absolutely. I can't think of
second round exit or bust. That's what Jiarmani's. I'm just kidding.
I don't even think they could lose in the second round if they wanted to, even like before like bringing everybody in. Like this team was like they lost in like the opening round when the guys got hurt, or they made the conference finals. That was their thing. Like their floor for the last few seasons were making it to the conference finals.
Again, you just assuming they're healthy, assuming all these other teams are healthy. No, I think I'm with you. If at minimum they get to conference finals, I think they make the finals. I don't know if a team in the East is going to beat them 4 times in a 7-game series. I'm with you in the sense that I don't know if an NBA team is going to beat them 4 times in a 7-game series because they were a good ass team last year, and they're the same team plus Lonnie Walker, who shouldn't be on an Exhibit 10 contract for any of the 30 NBA organizations.
I think he's going to get a lot of run with the Celtics, though, because like he's too good.
If he makes the roster.
Yeah, I think he will. I think he will. Like it's kind of hard, or even if it's not the Celtics, I think Lonnie Walker will find himself a place. But I'm pretty sure the Celtics would bring him in if they're able to, because I know like financial stuff and all that other good stuff. But
considering where they're at in the apron, they'd be adding like probably 10 to 15 million in extra tax dollars just to have him on a minimum contract, which is 2.1 million, 2.2 million.
Well, depending on who they sell the team to, I don't think they'll care. Or like at least whenever that trade ever happens.
It is interesting timing how Wick wanted to sell the team right after winning the finals. Like, I guess sell high, but
and locking up the core for the next half decade.
Yeah, like
very, 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 very like a thing to keep your eye on, you know. But yeah, I'm very excited for the season to start, and I'm very excited to see some Celtics basketball, having Celtics basketball again in my life. But I can see I feel like this team's too good. Like I feel like the only team out there that can beat the Celtics is the Celtics.
It's fair.
That's like my final thought. Like if the Celtics don't win the championship again, it's because of like pretty much it had more of them beating themselves compared to. But even then, it's like it's real. Like I'm at the point where it's like real hard for me to say that like a team can beat them. But again, there's a lot of basketball that needs to be played.
They gotta play the games, man.
Gotta play the game.
That's the beauty of the NBA basketball season. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please go check out the other previews, the Vendetta Sports Media NBA previews that we have on the YouTube channel, that we have on the site. We're going to be uploading. We're continuing to upload. We're roughly a week away from the NBA season at the time of this recording. So please go check all that stuff out when you have the opportunity to. My name is Matt. This is Jiarmani. Thank you all for watching. See y'all next time.